Brad Hobbs. It's a privilege to be able to hang out for a few minutes today. I have the privilege of being co-founder of Novum Partners, which is a new organization, new company this year. We launched in January, basically taking my partner's 30 years of executive experience and my experience living in the intersection of the church, nonprofit, and business space as a serial entrepreneur, and going, how do we help as many organizations and really leaders grow through the stages of life to make the greatest impact, both in their profits, the people, and the kingdom. And so I'm going to take, I had another slide. It didn't pull out well. This was my ChatGPT image generator. And so I asked somebody to build Brent Fessler at First Presbyterian in 10 years in a sweatsuit. And those were the two images that came out.
Nice.
From that, I think the clean cut with the gold rings and the sweatsuit could be an image. The Gucci slippers are a little stretched, but that was a little bit for that on that space. I'll get back to. We'll start from scratch here. What I'd like to talk to you today is really King Kong versus Godzilla and the 5 life stages of every organization, every company, every church, every nonprofit walks through every single one of these life stages. Some of them do not get beyond level 1, but every one of them will start at level 1 and then go, what are the odds and how do we actually beat them? Because no one wants to stay in a level 1 organization, but there are some really practical things you have to do in order to continue to scale and to grow your own leadership, the company, or the organization you lead. The first level that we look at in every organization is survival. All right, and so this is in survival mode. The odds are that 90% of entities in the United States stay in survival mode. They never get out of it. In survival mode, it's built on an idea, typically a founder, sometimes that's been passed on, there's been a succession plan, grit and charisma. So these are the people who show up every day. They're typically really small business owners, nonprofits, churches even, and we go, we're just going to keep grinding this thing out. And maybe one day it'll get lucky and it'll change. But the reality is they can stay in this for decades. It's typically sustained. So why do people not quit in survival mode? Is they have a dream or the hope that something could change. But really what it takes to get out of survival mode, if you're going to level up, is there has to be a catalyzing moment and a crisis. That's typically a stage where you go, that's the moment where things begin to shift for us. Secondly, there's typically outside or new capital. And this is not just financial capital. Typically, it's relational capital, intellectual capital. These are new people in the organization. Sometimes it is an influx of cash, but there's some new or additional horsepower brought to the table. And there has to be a survival type pressure. Something actually in our mental model when we build has to move us from survival to growth. And usually our natural inclination and pressure, our own grit, our own tenacity is typically not enough. So some type of survival pressure. The great passage of scripture of this is really Exodus chapter 2, verses chapter 11, or through chapter 11, which is the story of Moses leading the Israelites out of Exodus. So if you remember that passage of scripture, the Israelites have been in Exodus now for centuries, and they finally are like, we got to get out of here. It's the only reason they end up leaving the nation of Egypt. Thank you. Then we move into the transition zone. The transition zone is not a long period of time. It's literally a battle we face. And to move from a level 1 organization to a level 3 organization, it usually feels like fighting King Kong. All right? And the odds are that 70% of the organizations that try to move beyond the transition zone will fail. So Bain Company did that study about 5 years ago, and that watching as organizations grow and navigate, why they usually fall back into a level 1 entity. To level up in this area, you do have to level up your capital. What you had in level 1 and what you have in level 2 are significantly different odds. You have more people, the right type of people, and typically you're starting to see a little bit of cash generated to develop a flywheel. The third The third piece, or the second and third piece of this, is you have to have resilient stamina. Although this is a moment in time, it can be a lengthy moment in time. Sometimes in the transition zone, a company can stay here for 2 or 3 years as they're trying to get traction to move out of survival into level 3. The third and fourth piece of this is there's usually outside intervention that breaks down King Kong that gives you the victory piece. This is really clear in the Exodus account where Moses takes the people of Israel to the Red Sea and he goes, okay, the Egyptians are behind us. They're about to kill us. The people of Israel are mad at me. We've got to get across this Red Sea. We're trapped in here, and God splits the waters, and they walk across on dry land. Without that outside intervention, most likely the nation of Israel gets wiped off the face of the earth. Then we have to have a sustainable plan for the future. What happens after King Kong? We move to a level 3 once we move past the transition zone, and this is about growth. This is the fun stage. This is where everybody goes, man, everything we touch turns to gold, and we enjoy this season of life. The odds are that 9.6% of companies or entities in the U.S. live in the growth zone. This is where cash continues to go. We're getting the right talent. We love the impact that we're making. To level up from a level 3 to a level 4 organization, you actually have to have a predictable, profitable flywheel. You have to have both of those things, not just predictability. You got to have predictability and profitability in your flywheel. The second piece is you have to have optimized systems. The big thing that moves organizations back into a level 2 down to a level 1 is they don't upgrade their systems, their management systems, their decision-making grid of how they're actually going to navigate and operate as a growing organization. The third piece of this is you have to have headwind resiliency. A lot of this comes with foresight. So we actually have the tenacity and the people in place to withstand market shifts and dips in our flywheel. The fourth thing here is micro detail and macro strategy. Organizations that grow to a level 3 actually have to pay a greater attention to the detail than they did when they were in level 1, or they begin to lose the momentum of their flywheel. At the same sense, they have to have a macro strategy to know where are we driving this thing 3, 5, and 10 years from now. And then finally, for organizations that are in a faith-based approach to a business as ministry, this is where you typically start to program your ministry impact. Whether you're volunteer hours or you're giving a percentage of your profits, this is where you start to write what that looks like, what it feels like for us as an organization, because we now have extra profit and people to share. The great passage of this, Deuteronomy chapter 2 through 34, which is the nation of Israel at Mount Sinai all the way to the Jordan River with Moses as their leader. If you remember, one of the very first things that Moses does is his father-in-law Jethro comes to him. And he says, hey, we actually have to put some people in place to help you manage this thing. And then from there, we watch God continue to provide food, manna, water, and continue to conquer their enemies as they kind of walk through the desert. The nation of Israel amass quite a large group of people there. Then the final transition zone is we face Godzilla. Very few organizations actually have what it takes to get to this transition zone. Most of them kind of look at, we've got King Kong on one side and Godzilla in the next. If those two fight each other, we can actually live a healthy life right here in the middle. And so they just kind of stay in level 3 in between these two transitions. But the ones that actually cross over, 0.4% of entities in the US will actually get to being an exponential or a scaled organization. To level up here, you have to have capital for research and development. You actually have to be able to find some things that are innovative that you can begin to install as a level 5 organization. You have to have opportunities that exceed your capital, and not just, hey, we want to go buy this company, or we want to go buy this, but you actually have to go, these are fit into our flywheel and in our growth process, and we don't have the cash to operate how we currently think and operate. It takes a vision that requires more than you can currently offer. And for the founder, the owner, the leader, you actually have to wrestle with what are we fearing and what are we willing to give up in order to defeat Godzilla in the transition zone and move to a level 5 organization. We have 2 passages here that really show the one leader who walks a nation to the edge of a transition zone, and the people go, it's too big, it's too great, we're not willing to go there. And that's Moses taking the nation of Israel to the Jordan River for the very first time, and the 12 spies go across. 10 say no, 2 say yes. And then Joshua chapter 1, where Joshua chapter 1 and 2, Joshua actually leads the nation of Israel across the Jordan River into the promised land. Level 5 organizations are exponential organizations. Again, 0.4 of companies actually get here. What it means to level up and to live as a level 5 entity, a company. One, it takes scaled credibility. So your credibility actually has to match your brand and your vision. It takes a shared vision, and it takes empowerment across the organization. We'll talk about why that's critical. You have to have your own internal leadership development program in order to be an exponential organization, because you have to begin to not only hire the right leaders, you actually have to grow them up and send them as fast as opportunities arise. You have to upgrade your systems. The same systems that you built to be a level 3 organization will destroy you as a level 5 organization. And so you actually have to change the way that you operate your management structures, your financial structures, and the way that you think through managing all the people in those systems. In this aspect, and why you have to have empowerment, is exponential organizations have a micro center, meaning the corporate structure of the organization is highly detailed, highly policy driven, but the edges of the organization are extremely agile and are learning on a daily basis and now computing information back to the center. And so in a level 3 organization, your center-led information goes out to the edges. In a level 5 organization, information comes from the edge and comes to the center. This requires innovation with an increased ROI. So this is where technology usually comes into play. Some new idea where we now, what we were investing $100,000 in is now contributing multiples on our ROI than what it was contributing as a level 3 organization. And at this level, organizations from a faith-based stewardship component move to integrated stewardship, where it's no longer we're giving time, we're giving money, but all that we have and all that we are is the mission and the ministry that we're living. And so that's what the 5 stages of an organization and kind of the odds of beating each one, kind of drinking from the fire hydrant there. So thank you.